Hello, crows and non-crows alike. My name is Joe Mack, otherwise known as Support Crow, and today I am joined by two very lovely people. First off is none other than WizardPHD, the Ravenclaw with the PhD, the enigmatic, the irreplaceable,
Oh.
covering everything from Hogwarts Legacy to the latest in gaming news over at IGN. Lynette, say hello to the crows for me.
Hello to the crows.
And also joining us today is a good friend of mine, the Agent of Chaos, the Madam of Mayhem, the Gremlin in a trench coat who brings the rot and brain rot, Zira Davine. Say hello to the crows for me.
Hello, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me. Can't wait to see what we do.
And today's topic is Baldur's Gate 3 and the DLC that could have been Baldur's Gate 3 being a single-player or four-player co-op game based on the popular Dungeons & Dragons game, developed by Larian Studios. It's earned at least 13 awards, including the coveted Game of the Year. It received a 96 to 99 Metacritic score across all platforms upon its release. It sold at least 15 million copies as of March of this year, and it's inspired of a lot of naughty fan art.
Oh, yes. Specifically, your favorite character.
Oh, shush.
It's unbearable.
Oh.
Lynette, why do you think Baldur's Gate 3 was so popular and successful?
As I was thinking about this a little bit more yesterday, one of the things that I think is that the richness of the characters, I think, is what really makes it stand up or above the rest. I think that you could take any single one of the origin characters, just take one, and make an entire single-player RPG just with no problem. And I think that speaks to kind of the way that they were able to take something, take D&D and make it feel like D&D in a video game, which is very difficult to have that feeling of like, I can do anything. And of course there's limits, but being able to kind of have that, that agency to be like, I'm going to do something weird to try to fix this problem, whether it's like, I'm just going to go hard on explosives or I'm going to try to talk my way out of it. And so I think that was really compelling to people of being like, oh, this is what gaming could be as an interactive medium, is to be able to like do things that might not fit like a typical structure of a video game narrative. So those are like a couple of thoughts, but I mean, there's so many excellent things. Like everything in that game is just perfect, in my opinion.
It's good.
Definitely.
So, you got good quality, and you got a way for people to have unique experiences, and I think that's what sets it apart.
Yeah, I was watching one video earlier about all the different ways you could approach like the goblin camp and whatnot. You can poison the ale, you could fill it up with barrels and blow it up. The different
War crimes with a cat.
Definitely.
I mean, I love explosives. I kind of lean towards that, and it's just fun to see.
Between the different permutations and choices you can make in the game, and certain scenes that may involve a bear and a vampire late at night, it definitely gained a lot of popularity, and it seemed like Baldur's Gate 3 was going to have a long and prosperous future. Everyone was naturally expecting a DLC or a sequel announcement from Larian or something. But then during 2024's Game Dev Conference, the director of the project and head honcho of Larian, Sven Vick, I believe his name is, told everyone that there will be no DLC, no expansions, no sequel. If there's going to be a Baldur's Gate 4, it's going to be developed by a different studio. Apparently they were working on Baldur's Gate 3 DLC, but their heart wasn't into it. So they decided to move on to projects they wanted to do before Baldur's Gate 3 was a thing. Zira, you've been a fan of Baldur's Gate 3. Do you think this is a good move for Larian, and what do you think they could be working on? Are you mourning the loss of potential DLC?
Truth be told, I mean, a little bit. It's kind of sad, spoilers for the end of game sort of situation for anybody else. I'll try and keep them not too bad, but if you manage to get Karlach to not explode and kind of figure out her life goals and what she wants to do in the future. There is mentions, especially in the added on epilogues, that, oh, well, we've found this factory where they make all of the explosive heart bombs,
Right.
and we might kidnap somebody and make him fix mine. And I'm like, that's really cool, but that sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like a lot of DLC. And even with the concept of DLC, you've got to take into consideration the IP. They're working with Dungeons and Dragons. They are working very meticulously so at times, and a lot of the mechanics that they're working with have to be by the letter. I mean, they've changed a couple of them, which actually Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast have taken notes from in themselves. They're coming up with 2024's new player handbook. But we have things like Wildheart, which is kind of a twist off of Totem Barbarian, where I'm gonna be a little bit biased. I love that one. It's great. You don't have to worry too much about it. But you kind of have a direction where you follow this one goal. This is what you're doing for so long. You're gonna either fall in love with it for a short time, or you're going to understand that there needs to be a stopping point. Every good story has those highs and lows. It has those, oh my god, I loved that. Oh my god, why did that bear do that? kind of moments. That's right, we're getting a theme going.
Yeah.
But you get these highs and lows that really make something pop, really give it this iconic story. And in a way, it's sad to see it go, but it's almost nice to have these little love letters in between. It still gives players to think about these things for the future, to kind of develop their own stories. As we've already told with the countless fan arts and characters that were born of this project, I can't tell you how many artists have gone out there. They're making comic books, they're making their own AO3s, they're making their entire universes. And some of them, believe it or not, had never played D&D before. It's a whole new world for them, and while, yes, we can quick save and we can go back, it is one part of a story that we ourselves, I feel, are not only responsible for working with and cultivating as a community, but accepting that it is, in a way, our duty to continue the stories in our own ways. Because nothing does last forever.
That's true. That's well said. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you may look at it, Senior Vice President Eugene Evans of Wizards of the Coast, which is owned by Hasbro, has already confirmed that they are being approached by numerous potential partners to develop whatever is next for Baldur's Gate. Lynette, what are some challenges you could see from a studio trying to develop Baldur's Gate 4? Oh, hello? Oh no, the internet has fallen for me.
Well, I think that I can't just create something that follows up something that I just called perfect without having the same people, I pretty quickly, I mentioned playing Divinity Original Sin 2, but I didn't know too much about Larian until Baldur's Gate 3, when I was like, oh, that was that same studio, let me look more into them. And then I kept watching these live streams where the CEO Sven was just like wearing armor, and it's like, oh, I get it, like I get you. And so I think that the fact that Baldur's Gate 3 was so successful, and the fact that there are other people who want a piece of that, and we are in this time in the industry where it's like, hey, gaming is like really hot right now. We want a piece of it, no matter what the talent is or the experience level or the sort of like, I don't know. I won't get too much into that side, my cynical side of that, but like, because of all of that, there's a lot of potential for it to not be that great or not live up to the sort of, the standard that Baldur's Gate 3 has set. And I mean, when you have a game that is that, where it feels like this is something that stands out compared to other games. Not just like a standard game of the year. Like game of the year's winners are very great, but to me, this one is one of those things where it kind of like shifts the way that people think about like what is it that I'm seeking out in games, or how developers can kind of push the boundaries of what they're trying to do in their craft as they're trying to develop experiences that are, interesting and really it taps into that interactive medium. But yeah, I think that because there's a lot of potential money, like that's what I get worried about. Like, well, are you just trying to turn around a quick profit, or is it gonna lose that essence of like, this feels like a literal game of Dungeons and Dragons to me in video game form? Are you gonna lose the quirkiness of your CEO just walking around in armor and being goofy and like empowering his employees to kind of elevate what they're working on? I mean, Larian has existed for a while now, and Sven has said multiple times in interviews, my team is at the top of their game. Like, this is something that has been decades of working to enhance, and even going from something like Divinity Original Sin 2, which was also notable for what it was, and taking it to the next step of like, oh, we're gonna do these cinematic dialogue cutscenes as part of it. It's still, there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of enhancements if you've played both games that you can see, and that comes with having that collective knowledge and experience that carries through. So I think it would be very challenging to follow up a Baldur's Gate 4 if you're trying to keep it like, oh, we're going to be like Baldur's Gate 3. So I think that there is potential for someone else to take it up if it's a different style, if it's not in this turn-based RPG sort of genre. If you do something different with it, maybe, but that has to be a decision that has a lot of thought and care from start to finish of like, what is a Baldur's Gate 4 entry going to offer in this series, and not trying to live up to a Baldur's Gate 3, because I don't think it's possible.
It's going to be very difficult to
Extremely.
Well, I feel like it's going to be very difficult to make Baldur's Gate 4 its own standalone. You know, we had Baldur's Gate 1, we had Baldur's Gate 2, and you can kind of see traces and hints and remnants threads in Baldur's Gate 3. You know, you've got Saravok, he's there, you're like, I thought I dealt with this problem. And he's kind of a little nugget of lore that you might find, but you also might not. You might even just skip that entire part and say, I guess Hallison's just gonna live in the basement now. So making it a standalone piece is not only mechanically very challenging, but story-wise, I can't wait to see what they do, but it's going to be a very heavy responsibility. It's going to be a big challenge, and I do hope for the best.
Of course, the potential for Baldur's Gate 3 DLC is not entirely dead in the water. Hasbro does still maintain the IP rights to not only the game, but also our favorite BG3 characters such as Shadowheart and Astarion and Karlach, etc. By all rights, they could take the game and give it to another studio and have that studio develop additional DLC. The issue with that is, in my opinion, is a matter of trust. Zira, you've been keeping an eye on Hasbro a little bit. Can you explain the problems Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast have been having lately?
Well, I can't speak for very recent events, but I can definitely speak of the more volatile ones that have happened across the years, you know? Ever since Magic the Gathering and Wizards of the Coast were kind of acquired by Hasbro, run by Hasbro, they've kind of had a bad reputation of, I would say, oversaturation and potentially over-monetizing. They actually have on record said, we're not monetizing these products enough, we need to make more money off of them. And that kind of a mindset puts not only potential customers, but potential players off of the system. You've got instances where they've actually caused some serious mental trauma for a couple of individuals regarding a certain early accidental release of cards and a certain Pinkerton incident. But on top of all of that, we had a lot of our trust betrayed when it came to, I want to say, D&D 1. Did they call it D&D 1 or 1E? I think it was just 1.
It was just 1. D&D 1.
It was just 1. And it caused such a divide in how people saw Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast that a lot of people to this day, I know for a fact, just they've stopped playing. They've stopped participating in these sorts of things. You know, the Dungeons and Dragons movie, believe it or not, it was phenomenal. It actually came out. It was a wonderful show. It was a great story. It was very captivating. And it was heavily encouraged to boycott it because of all of the things that were happening, because people did not trust Hasbro to do anything with good intentions. And I think they're trying to cultivate those good intentions again. It's a little tricky to regain trust once you've broken it so egregiously, but they're also treading a very fine line between product and profit. And they have to make their own shareholders happy. From what I understand, they're doing fairly well financially right now, but looking in the past few months, looking in the past few years, they're less satisfying the customers and more of their yes men, their stockholders. And if you have that mindset for too long, especially when it comes to any gaming industry, any industry for that matter, you might begin to lose sight of what makes your games, your play styles, your company really shine. You know, we genuinely love Larian Studios because they're quirky, they're wild. I mean, again, you said Sven shows up in armor every single time.
Right.
And we don't exactly know what Sven does behind the scenes. He could very well just wear that armor in the middle of, like, all of their studio work. Yeah. But we don't know, but we trust that. And even when watching things like the Game of the Year awards, you look at the people behind the scenes that are putting all of this love into a company, into what they do, and you see how happy they are. And Hasbro doesn't have that kind of mentality. They've kind of eroded that trust in a way that we can't see the difference between them trying to show us something new and creative and bright and what could possibly be a double-edged sword. You know, they've made a lot of really cool crossovers. They've made Lord of the Rings. They did some Dungeons and Dragons crossovers with Magic the Gathering a few times. And right back to it, they tried to break out the 30th anniversary card set, saying, oh, well, this is a great idea, not remembering their original promise for those foundations that they made, that we're going to lock these out, we're never going to release them again. So it's here's a hand out and here's a hand back sort of deal. So to more current events, I have not heard any big news about give and take sort of situations. I think they're sort of laying low in terms of that. I think they're trying to keep their heads down, which is in a way a very good strategy if you're trying to rekindle trust. You don't want to just jump out and say, hey, but I think a lot of, you know, Baldur's Gate 3 fans are a little hesitant, but I will say Larian Studios bought them a lot of good faith. And I, as always, will remain an optimist. I always like to see change in a good way, but there's a lot of ground to be made up. So it's gonna be a fun time to see where they take the story from here.
Indeed. Well, despite whatever issues have arisen or may arise in the future, and hopefully what trust is gained, regardless of kind of all of that, Hasbro is not going to wait another 25 years to make another installment for Baldur's Gate 3. Or for Baldur's Gate.
Just Skyrim.
Yeah, that's just Skyrim. Yeah. The special edition Baldur's Gate 3. So I've asked you to think of some DLC ideas, pitches, or whatever, and I've come up with a few myself, but it won't be a good D&D podcast episode thing without us breaking out the D&D dice. So.
Oh.
I think I have some on my desk. I'll use, actually, you know what? I'll use Malaria's dice. For those of you that don't know, I play a character in his campaign named Malaria, who has severe brain rot. She is a doll. And the dice are either very kind or not kind.
So I have the Baldur's Gate 3 Collector's Edition
Oh,
giant.
hey.
Like, it's the size of, it's bigger than my eye, actually. I won't roll it because it'll dent my table. It's like
I feel
solid.
so underprepared.
twins.
You have one too.
Oh,
Maybe
man.
Malaria will give me some luck today against the two of you.
I'll just set this next to the collector's edition.
Rub it in.
Just a little.
I will say,
just a
my
little.
dog does not like the sound of rolling dice, so he might jump up on my face after rolling this.
All right. Please roll
All right.
for initiative.
I have rolled a 7.
12.
I got a 19. Uh-huh.
Well, good, because I saw your face, Zira, and I was also like, I mean, I kind of have some ideas, but I
It's
don't
like
think
we
they're
have
fleshed
some.
out. I can come up with some real fast.
They're just darts on a chalkboard. I think that works.
Brainstorming session will work out just fine.
Yeah, we're going to
It's
figure
good that
this
you're
out.
gonna start first, Joe.
Lynette, no.
Fast.
That's not how this works.
All right. So, it's always awkward being the first one, but okay. I think one really good DLC would be Waterdeep, the city of Waterdeep, because not only is it Gale's home, it's also just this massive metropolitan city on the coast. It's ran by like this council of secret nobles that all wear these like magical masks, so no one knows who they are, but not even like themselves. They just sort of like show up. So it'd be kind of cool if like, we could like steal one of those masks and pretend to run the city for a little bit. That'd be kind of cool. You also got Mount Waterdeep next door, which is home to like the Undermountain like dungeon or whatever, which is popular for adventurers. You got this crime spy organization by Zenithar the Beholder, which is a beholder, duh. And this kind of tickles the culinary adventurer in me. It is a prominent place to hold cooking competitions. So yeah, I would love to see Waterdeep in any capacity.
I forgot you really like food.
I do really like food. We got a D&D podcast coming out with food related material. I can't say too much.
Oh, but I'm so hungry. Please, a
No.
crumb, sir.
You'll find out when we play it.
That does sound like a lot of fun, though. I've heard a lot about Waterdeep, especially when it comes to like the different characters that you could see there, how it was founded, sort of deals. Not a whole lot, of course, like little tidbits here and there.
Mm.
But they definitely really liked Gale. Like the way that he boasts about it, he's like, "Oh, I was a good wizard." I'm like, "How many towers? If you're all wizards in a tower, what does it look like?"
yeah.
Right?
Because like he shows you, right?
Yeah, you do kind of visit it in one of the romance scenes that yeah.
I gotta be
You're a
honest.
Housen man.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was a Gale man first, so.
I did not like Gale. For the longest time.
Really?
I avoided him at
Wounded.
all costs. He annoyed me.
It's the boots, isn't it?
There's something about him. I mean, I love what's his name? Tim, the voice actor for
Tim Downey.
Yes, for Gale. So watching them play D&D together was so fun, and I was just like, oh man, I want more of this sort of, chaos energy between all of you as people. There's something about him that I was just like, we can't have. You mentioned I'm a Ravenclaw. Can't have two know-it-alls in the group. Listen, like, get
Fair.
out of here. I got this.
Are we all Ravenclaws?
I'm Ravenclaw, she's Ravenclaw. Are you a Ravenclaw?
Yeah.
I'm a Ravenclaw.
Hey!
Hey! Yay, Bird
nice.
Squad!
Wow.
That never happens before.
I'm gonna have to change the title of this podcast. 3 Ravenclaws geek over Baldur's Gate 3.
3 birds in a trench coat.
3 birds in a trench coat.
Exactly.
Oh Lord.
But no, I get it. I felt really bad when I was working with Gale, because as like a character standpoint, I play blue screen lady, so I just quick save, and I'm like, oh yeah, blue screen, let's just quick save over here. Pretend we didn't see anything. I'll press that button. And his whole premise of I need shoes was a little confusing at first, because I needed those shoes.
Right.
But at the same time, he wouldn't tell me why he needed them.
So, just wanted to eat them. He was hungry.
Why are
He's
you
hungry for
eating the
leathers.
expensive stuff?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yes. But he does eventually turn into kind of like a puppy, I guess.
Yeah. No, the more I got
guess.
to talk to him, I was like, okay, fine, I guess. But I
He
still
grows on you.
Blazel is the character I played first. She's my main person, and
I have a feeling.
yeah. No, I'm obsessed with her. Yes. What about you?
She's great.
Who did you start with?
Well, might sound a little basic, but I kind of started off on Astarion.
Okay.
And I got to Act 2, and I thought about it, and I'm like, I feel like he just needs a friend. I don't think he needs all of this just yet. I think he needs to learn how to be a person. And we're gonna be the best wingman ever. And then about 2 minutes later, I took a nap, and Will was on my side, like, hey, I'm like, well, we're going for this guy.
All right.
So I am a Willmancer. I love it. And I feel like if we did ever actually get a DLC, that'd be really nice to flesh his story out,
Yeah.
Totally.
Be a good time. There's something to build off of.
I first originally played, well, aside from, Tav, Gale, which was a interesting thing, essentially having a bomb in your chest and be like, hey, you could explode at any minute. I'm like, cool, thanks.
Did you feed Astarion? That's the most important question.
Ooh.
I did not.
But he's hungry!
I know, but
But he's hungry! You have to feed your rogues!
but that's my magical cranberry juice, okay? So, it stays in me.
Magical cranberry juice. That's funny.
I mean, I suppose he needs it for his really, really old knee people. His knees are just a little bit creaky.
All right, Lynette, would you like to
Should I pitch? Okay.
go for it?
So in game, so here's the other thing you need to know about me. I rarely finish games because this is just I think, so people have talked to me about this as like, I think it's because you don't want them to end. And I think that's accurate on some part. I also like to play a lot of games simultaneously, and I'm just like, oh, I'll taste this and I'll taste that, and it's fine. So typically though, in games, I'm a side quest girl, so I love interacting with NPCs. It's like my favorite thing, and that's why I like characters, fleshed out characters with personalities and flaws and things to talk about, their little snarkiness. I love talking back to them.
Yeah.
It's great. So any DLC, I will always be like, give me more like NPC interactions. And I was thinking more about like, okay, so like there's a lot of people you could interact with in Baldur's Gate 3 and like flesh out more of what it is that they do. Of course, we have origin characters that we can follow, but like, what about these other people who are also existing at this time that this is all happening? So one of the things that I really like the tiefling kids. Like, Maul, I mean, even though like it was kind of like this tension where it's just like, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you stealing from me? Or what's this hideout? And like trying to figure them out, like what their deal is. I would love to like kind of see that, because what I love about playing the game is that NPCs you interact with in Act 1, you might see them later in I mean, everyone's going to Baldur's Gate, right? So seeing them later and kind of catching up, like time has passed, like what's going on here? I loved that so much. And so I think Maul is one of them that I'm like curious about, especially because I'm like, I must protect. There was a certain point in the story where it's like, I gotta protect her at all costs. Like, you can't be making deals and like doing shady stuff. Like,
She's doing fine.
Yeah. Her, and then Arabella. I think that I'm curious about kind of like where she goes from here. So like her story of like, you know, you meet her and her parents in Act 1, and then you run into her again in Act 2, and then stuff happens. And so I'm kind of curious about, like, if we went on an adventure together, like, what are certain things that would be a sort of side quest extension of, like, let's keep this going a little bit. So anything that has me doing another quest, I'm like, yes, just give me more to check. I like the little checking them off my list, be like, okay, let's do this. Though I do know that, like, of course, if we have so many characters in this game, having to, like, focus or choose, and then you're also writing branching permutations for all of that, could get messy. But that's what I typically prefer, is, like, give me more interactions with NPCs.
I feel like this DLC's title is called Child Support.
Well, no, you've got other tieflings too. You've got Bex and Danis. I'd love to see where that goes. And actually, as you pointed out with the tiefling kids, Mole was like, "Hey, we're gonna start running Baldur's Gate sort of vibes." I'd love to see, if not a DLC, then like a little module for D&D where you're dealing with the Thieves Guild, and there's a section of it that's just Mole and the tiefling kids. They're like, "Hey, we got here." I feel like that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Plot twist, they're actually running the place.
They could be, yeah. I mean, who do you think's going to take care of Xanathar's stuff over in the other place? Someone's got to take care of that fish. But no, the tieflings, that's a good one. What was actually, here's a fun little question. What was your opinion on Roland and how his character arc had?
Roland's the
kind of developed
tiefling sorcerer dude, right?
Yeah, he starts off as a complete jerk, and he just like Act 1, he wants to leave. Act 2, he's trying to do things, and you're just kind of like doing them before he does them. And then Act 3, he's like, "Oh my god, it's my bestie." Hey!
Oh yeah, no, I do remember that moment, because I was like, what is happening? I was annoyed with him for the longest time. I'm like, you know what? Go figure it out. And then eventually it's like, oh, look, I know him. I think that was kind of satisfying, is seeing, like, you have these interactions past, like, whether, like, to what extent you, like, take it up seriously or kind of pass through it. And then it's that follow through of being like, oh no, this person still exists in the world.
Right.
They're alive. Oh my god. Yeah. And that's a great payoff too, especially with all those permutations you were mentioning. It's really nice to see it pay off sometimes.
Right. Yeah, and major spoiler warning to anybody listening, but unfortunately with Roland and his siblings, there's a tavern in Act 2 that I accidentally kind of get everyone killed in all the time. So I don't.
So you didn't go in Act 3.
I don't really get a chance to see a lot of people in Act 3, unfortunately.
Let me guess, somebody went straight for Shadowheart's particular adventure, didn't you?
No, they just, like, they took the cleric lady and they flew off, and then everyone was just dying everywhere, so I can't save anybody. It was a rough time, but yeah, I loved Baldur's Gate 3 specifically. For one specific reason, is because we kept seeing these NPCs, not just Halson. You know, I
don't know, Act 1.
Fair, but anyway, moving forward, we see these NPCs continually going over and over again, which is refreshing for the kind of RPG that it is, for a lot of RPGs that we see along, because a lot of places like, Bethesda, you play someone's quest and then you just don't see them again unless they're like part of like the main quest kind of deal. Seeing these NPCs kind of come back around over and over again, it kind of gives that special kind of weight to the choices that you're making, because you could, it was really interesting, that feeling of realizing, oh hey, I could see these people again, and they could scald me for accidentally killing everyone. So, yeah, that's
Arabella.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, you know, someone else that I also I liked seeing in Act 3, even though when I first met her, I was kind of like, what is the deal here? Is Mayrina with her husband that she's like trying to save and all this stuff. Yeah, but when you meet her back in Act 3 in Baldur's Gate, she's like in this support group and with other people who have been like tricked by hags, and it's like
Hags
I would
Anonymous.
love to sit in on one of their meetings. Like honestly, like can we take down some hags? I'll help you. Why not?
I mean, yeah, it makes sense, especially for Baldur's Gate, because it's already kind of like a refugee city. And God, did you guys have to deal with the warehouse?
The warehouse? You mean with the mechanical robot stuff?
Somewhat. Spoilers ahead a little bit. I spend way too much time doing the side quests. And I will find every single nook and cranny, so I might have stolen a couple of things from Halsin's room, but that's okay. Listen, it helps with the bloodless problem, and that's all I need. But you get to Act 3, and you've got all the refugees, and there's a warehouse, and you can go right into the warehouse and just be like, yes, I'm going to be nosy in here, like a sneaky little guy. Or if you end up in this house, it's got like a squatter problem or something, and if you read the guy's thoughts, he's like, oh my god, don't go in the basement, don't go in the basement, don't go in the basement. You go into the basement, it's booby-trapped, rigged up with explosives, and you get through it, which isn't fun, by the way. You get through it, and you find that he's been making explosive toys to hand out to the refugee kids.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah.
So you have to rush. Yeah, you have to rush all the way over to the warehouse and be like, yo, the teddy bears have bombs in them and we need to find the box. But you don't know where the box is, so you're ripping all of the stuff out of the warehouse. You're like, why are they going to give you moldy cheese? Anyways. So, like, little things like that kind of pay off. And you'll see these NPCs that are just like, and I would have gotten away with it if you kids and your dog hadn't done something about it. Wait, are we the Scooby Gang?
We are kind of the Scooby Gang,
are we just
honestly.
The Scooby Gang?
A very demented Scooby Gang.
Oh yes. we all have a little bit of chaotic evil in us.
So yeah, clearly I need to keep more people alive in my next playthrough.
I take it Act 2 was not your friend.
Act 2 was not my friend. I actually lost Halsin because of it, because I left without curing the thing. I have not had any luck with any relationship in this game, by the way, because I got to the end of Act 3 and Gale dumped me at the pier for a magic hat.
You were maidenless?
Oh, shush.
Oh my goodness.
How dare you brand me so?
We will fix that. Hey, I play as the blue screen wingman. I got you. We'll work on that together.
Oh, Lord. Zira.
Yes?
Which DLC would you like?
Gosh, Lynette here's done a lot about the tieflings and stuff. I was actually thinking, like early Act 2, kind of late Act 1. I really liked the Grimforge and like the Underdark sort of situation. And I thought it was really colorful. I thought it was really pretty, but I'm gonna be real honest with you guys. I started the game before you could spare Minthara, so I have no experience with that drow lady.
Right.
And I know that she is a paladin. I know that if you had waited a couple of patches, you could have rescued her and not turned her into a sheep for some reason. I didn't even know that was Minthara, and I just kind of like put the cat next to her and had the cat detonate a couple barrels of smoke powder. And she was no longer in my playthrough, kind of like, his and Halsin. But I would love to learn more about the Underdark and how it relates to the drow. She mentioned she was from a matriarchal society. And even if you play as a drow, it's very interesting to see how people respond to you. Like, if you're a tiefling, they'll go, a tiefling! But if they go and see a drow, they're like, oh my god, what are you doing up here? How are your eyes? Are you good? Also, a drow! And they'll still freak out. But I'd love to see a little DLC where, like, you get into that sort of thing. Maybe maybe you can, I'm not too familiar on the Minthara side of things. Maybe you can show her the error of her ways. I mean, she can still slay things, but maybe a little bit more directed chaos. And I'd love to see if she wants anything to do with that society sort of deal. I'd love to see more Underdark. I want to know what's happened with the little spore guys. I want to know what happened to I think it was the Dwagar. Either Duragar or Dwagar. The little rock guys. Them wonderful rock gnomes.
Right.
Or not gnomes, dwarves.
The grumpy dwarves.
The angry little men. And, I mean, I ended up with friends. I made friends with them because persuasion was going so well at that time. I want to see where they ended up. Are they still doing bad things? Are they being okay-ish? And the gnomes, I mean, we see them in the end of Act 3 with all of their fun little tidbits. Can I just say, I hate Wilburn Bongle?
Yeah.
If there was one person I couldn't spare at Act 2, it should have been Wilburn Bongle.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be real honest. Blue Screen has technically not made it through the entirety of Act 3. So I haven't had the pleasure of finally concluding Wilburn Bongle's story, but I understand the gist of it to an extent, and I think the Iron Hand gnomes deserve better. I really want to see what happens with how their story plays out and who is in charge of that, and that precious boy needs more screen time, and hopefully not on a windmill.
Gotcha.
So I'd love to see more into that sort of thing, but I definitely loved the Underdark, and I'd love to see, I don't know, just a little bit more chaos. Like the Boal fish, how are they doing? I still have my blessing. They're doing great, apparently, from a screen standpoint, but let's have my cult kind of, come in, take out the ball cult, we'll just put the fish guys in there. Free real estate.
Yeah. Did y'all get the Githyanki egg in your playthroughs?
No.
So I want. Okay, this is gonna sound weird. I want to raise a baby Gith. Just be like, let's go. Okay, my theme is just hang out with the kids and see them grow up.
Yes!
That's my theme.
Kids Day.
Yeah.
Welcome to Lynette's childcare.
Yeah.
I mean, in the epilogue, they talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's
I was hoping that something would happen. I'm like, I'm gonna protect this egg. Gonna pay off somehow, or I don't know. I was in my brain. I was like, this game can do anything. This is probably written in here, right? And it's like
they actually added it on.
What?
They actually added that on as part of the epilogue.
Yeah.
They also did Bing Bong.
Bing Bong.
Yeah, Bing Bong. So when the Baldur's Gate cast did their D&D session.
Oh my god, yeah.
Bing Bong was a character that they met as an NPC. And Shadowheart's voice actor actually mentions it in the epilogue because the epilogues came out after the session of D&D.
Yes.
They were able to kind of sneak that in there. They also snuck in God's favorite princess.
Oh my god, yeah.
Interesting.
So it was definitely
funny.
A love letter for an epilogue.
Yeah. I mean, how fun they must have had just, going back to it after seeing the love and success of everything that they've done.
And I think that's a really good love letter for them, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is probably why it doesn't hurt me as much that they're not continuing.
Yeah. I mean, the more I think about it, I see your points. It's fair. Stories do have to end as much as you love them and you love, because it's the thing. It's like, on the one hand, it's like, I just want to hang out with my digital friends more.
We all
on the
do.
other, it's, yeah.
Right.
On the other, it's like, there are other stories that we can tell.
Yeah.
Especially oh, go ahead.
I did not meet Wolgren Brongle until the end of, not the end, but towards Act 3. He just sort of showed up out of nowhere and says, why didn't you just kill all of them? I'm like, who are you? Are you someone important?
You really had a rough time in Act 2.
Oh my gosh.
You had a rough time in Act 2, buddy. We're gonna have to go back and fix that for you. They've got multiplayer and everything else.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, when I'm playing like games, especially games like Baldur's Gate 3, I stick with my mistakes because
That's fair.
That's
fair.
Even though it's slightly masochistic of me, I do enjoy seeing the outcome of the mistakes I make. So, even though it mainly ends up with everyone dead, I kind of like having that option, It's weird, but anyway.
It's okay. None of us managed to keep that guy alive at Act 2 with the noble stock and the bibber bang. I don't even remember his name. I didn't even realize that was a problem that I would have just stepping in and poof, oops. And they mentioned it. They're like, "Oh, did you get the noble stock?" I'm like, "What is a noble stock?" Oh, it exploded.
Yeah, it
well,
took a long time for me to figure out, like, how do I prevent this?
I don't even know if it was preventable on my end. I just kind of like sent the cat in, and then there was no cat anymore.
Oh, I want the Artificer class.
Ooh,
I want to
yeah.
cast gun. Please let me cast gun.
But, buddy, you can already cast gun. Just have Astarion equip those 2 hand crossbows.
Yeah, I know.
Pew, pew, pew,
I know.
pew.
You could put the cowboy hat on them, and it's a whole thing. I seen the memes.
Yeehaw! Don't you want to be a yeehaw?
I mean, yeah, but
Can your character pull it off is the question.
probably.
I'd actually expected you to ask for Kenku.
Yo, why is this not on this list?
You made a list? I'm just going off the top of my head, buddy.
Of course I made a list. I make a list for everything.
I mean, you are in charge of the podcast. It makes sense.
I can't leave the house without making a list. Let me just...
But yeah, I'm surprised you didn't want a Kenku race for your whole bird shtick.
I'll combine the two. I want my Kinku Artificer to go pew-pew through Baldur's Gate.
Okay.
Oh god, what's the opposite of anti-air? I guess just flying type?
Flying type.
Oh god, you'd be an airplane. Just drop Gale. Bombs away.
Black Hawk down
Perfect
or
plan.
Black Claw down. No.
Gaslight Gatekeep Girl Boss. Scale bomb.
All right, Lynette, back to you.
Oh my gosh, we're rotating?
I
thought
guess we are.
Kind of brainstorming.
We're just kind of like
here.
going
Oh,
around in
okay.
circles now.
I don't know if I have anything. I mean, I think it would be probably very difficult given that Larian has said how difficult it is to get those higher level spells in there without breaking the game.
Yeah,
But
like
I
Wish.
think it would be fun to try to see, like, if you had some more higher level spells, like, I love chaos in games, so like that's kind of like just for fun. Like, can we have like, even if it's just self-contained, like I don't know. Oh, actually no. I'm gonna take back my well, no, I'm not gonna take back the higher level spells, but like, what if we just had something to do in the Astral Sea where we needed like some other higher level spell? I don't know. That's my off the cuff. Now that you just asked me, think of something else.
No, that'd be cool. Like
going somewhere, but having it be kind of like big guns, chaotic. Like, let's just have this little mini thing going on. I don't know.
They did
I
release
wish to teleport.
Teleport, definitely. They did release like the Spelljammer module for the Astral Sea, didn't they?
Oh yeah.
You go fly around in ships, visit different places.
Actually, there's a good DLC for you. I mean, Lae'zel, depending on how she ends, she's going back to the Astral Sea, right? Depending on how you built her, I mean, you could visit, you could go with her, you could see what's up. If she's still having a great time with her queen, then you can, I guess, check in on that. If you decided to go Viva la Revolution, you could help with that. I mean, the world is open. It's there. It's ready for you.
All the companions did kind of go off and kind of do their own thing in the world. It would be interesting to kind of check back with them.
Hang out with Karlach.
Hang out with Karlach. Or go back to hell with Karlach and Exploring the
DLC,
9
yeah.
hells. Oh my
That would have been a
goodness.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
And they actually had a lot of cut content for Baldur's Gate itself. We were supposed to be able to see a couple of different sections of the city. And we ended up not doing that because of, I don't remember if it was crunch time. I don't remember if they did a whole lot of crunch time situations, but they were really cranking stuff out almost every week for a while.
Yeah.
So it's sad, but it's probably for the best because, let's be honest, I'm already up to 250 mods. It can't get worse than this. It can't get worse.
It can always get worse. Skyrim has taught us it can always get worse.
That is true. We do not have a Macho Man Randy Savage dragon in Baldur's Gate just yet.
Just yet.
Baldurin is fortunately still Baldurin.
Oh my gosh.
Dragons, that's an interesting one too, because we only really get to fight 2 types of dragons. We have like that undead dragon thing and just 2 red dragons. But in D&D, there's loads of dragons. I want more dragons in my dungeons, essentially, is where I'm going with this. We got the rest of the chromatic, like black and blue and white and green. You got the metallic dragons, like gold and silver and bronze. They've recently added like the crystal dragons, like emerald and ruby.
And metallics.
And then you got those unique ones, like the time dragon, the prismatic dragon, and the turtle dragon.
Yeah, and they're actually updating designs. They're updating designs for the green dragons, blue dragons. I've seen green dragons. They're very fluffy. They got a lot of wispy sort of energy to them. And I think that's going to be part of the new updated version, the 2024 Player's Handbook or something like that. Oh, I could have mentioned that about Hasbro. That's what they're working on right now. That's what they're working on. They're redoing all the rules. But they're also making different things look different. So it's not just, here, let's turn it blue, let's turn it pink, and same model. Actually, I'd love to learn more lore about like those hidden romances that you see running around. We've got Dennis and Bex. Did they ever, get that coffee shop? Did they ever like have a kid, settle down? We can add them to Lynette's daycare. Like my favorite side couple was actually Omelium and Blurg. I really liked them, and it's really tough to keep them alive.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Oh,
so
no.
I want to see some payoff for that.
Well, that explains why I don't know them, because they're probably dead. So
Well, it sounds like you killed everyone. I mean,
I probably did kill
They
everyone,
weren't
yes.
even in Act 2. How did you miss? Wait, did you kill the mushrooms? Did you spray antifungal on the mushrooms?
The mushrooms are alive. I can guarantee
Okay.
this. The mushrooms are the only living things in my game.
Oh no. Well, that's a good thing. That's a good start. How are the druids doing for you, buddy?
Depending on the playthrough, the druids are alive or dead.
Oh no.
When I was playing like the evil Poppy like playthrough, and all those druids are dead. Just everyone legit is dead. So
We won't talk about the corpse bag.
Mm.
I have a long-standing record of the most corpses in a single bag. They stack.
yeah.
This this one might seem a little redundant, but I would like to see some kind of like player housing and customization. You got the camps, but I would like to have like a place to customize.
We don't even have a tent.
We don't even have a tent. We have
We don't have a
Sleep on the
tent. I don't
ground.
know where we sleep. Like, Astarion has a tent. He has his little raggedy cloth handkerchief that he sleeps with, but we don't even have a tent. We're just out in the middle of the pouring rain going, yep, this is fine. Or maybe that's why Withers is telling us to do romances, so we're not just
can go to a
outside
tent.
like a sopping like rat, you know? You're just watching us from the corner like, maidenless again.
I would like to know more about Withers.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting character. I mean, we kind of all knew, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, spoilers, but according to some data mining, Werther's is apparently Fergal, the original god of death. So, but apparently due to like past crimes or whatever, he's been like ordered by another god to help us take care of.
Whoops.
Yeah, so I want to. We don't know what those crimes are, and we don't really know much about his origin. So
Yeah.
I thought he was
Well, I
just
mean,
on
I thought that
vacation.
was it was cool. Like at the end, where it's like, oh, Withers pops up in a cutscene, and it's just like, can I
Yeah.
get a little bit more? You know, like
yeah,
I see
some
what you're saying there.
questions like hello.
Hey, Monsieur Mole. I mean, even the way you find him too. Did anybody have a playthrough where they didn't just knock on his dusty skeleton? Because I feel like everybody kind of followed that path where they kicked down his door and was just like, you're not gonna kill me here. Because I think there's a couple of playthroughs where he just shows up.
He just shows up at your
'Cause
camp. Yeah,
He just
I
shows
saw
up at the
that,
camp
but
because
yeah.
And
But
it's
I
kind of
definitely
weird.
went in that, and I was like, "What's going on?" And I tried killing him like over and over, and he's like, "No,
It's like, no.
this is not
Stop
how
that.
this works."
Like, stop
Yeah.
that.
Peace. I mean, even if you mess up his dinner party, he goes ballistic. On
Yeah.
Gale, too, if he's like a god, he's
Uh-huh.
just like, I
Yeah.
don't care. Snaps
Yeah.
his fingers and chucks you into the wind.
I love how they played with that marketing for the epilogue, and they're like, "You're invited to Wither's dinner party," or whatever, however they phrased it. And it's just like, this is so goofy.
It's like, it's Wither's tea party, pinkies up,
Yeah.
people. Does he
Yeah.
have a pinky? We don't know.
Mm.
Oh, that'd be something nice to see, maybe in the next Baldur's Gate, actually.
Mhm.
Because you figure, you see it most of the time in like the loading cutscenes, and it tells you about Jorgal and the Dead Three. The Dead Three were just 3 dudes that petitioned for powers, and Jorgal was like, "Okay, I'm bored. Here you go. You get this. You get this. You get this. Have fun." And they're like, "Yay, murder! Yay, death! Yay,
Tyranny.
betrayal! Tyranny!
There
Yay! Thank you." And they just kind of run off, and he's like, "All right, nobody bothered me for 600 years. I'm going on vacation." And he comes back, and like the epilogue, he's just sassing them. He's like, "I gave you all of this candy. You burnt it. You spent all of your money. How many kids did you have? It doesn't matter. They're not around anymore." It's like, I'd love to see him just kind of like take it all back and be like, "All right, who's next? I'm bored.
Uh-huh.
Gale's over there. He's already prideful and ambitious. We don't need that. How about Astarion? Nope, no. Oh god, he's ascended over there. We don't want to deal with that. Well, Shadowheart. Nope, you got your own thing. Let's give it to Karlach. What could go wrong?" And he has such wonderful comments too. And it's not just about your character, it's about every character. I think he genuinely likes some of the characters,
Mhm.
Yeah.
depending on how they act.
Right.
He loves Karlach.
Well, Karlach's pretty great.
You can be a
She
little
is pretty
sassy.
great. Listen, Mama K's got sass, and I'll keep it to that.
I don't know what else.
I
So-
mean... Oh, go ahead.
I think when this might be a little, cheesy of them to do, but what Wizards of the Coast could do is take some of their very popular modules and whatnot, like Storm King's Thunder or Curse of Strahd, Icewind Dale and whatnot, and sort of reinvent them in a way, kind of like remake them into DLC for Baldur's Gate 3 and bring in those creatures and treasures and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, Curse of Strahd is usually the one that I see people teach not Baldur's Gate, oh no. It's usually the first module I see people teach Dungeons and Dragons with.
Mhm.
If it's not a homebrew, then most of the time, people go for Curse of Strahd. It's simple, it's straightforward. A lot of times, the anticipated outcome happens,
Mhm.
and if it doesn't, you can fall back and be like, "Oh god, my pages. But I don't know how that would fall into Baldur's Gate, though.
Mhm.
I mean, they have the same universe, they have the same properties, but if we're all still playing, like, the gang's all here,
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work in the sense of that dynamic. You know, we as players and the NPCs, we were kind of all forced in together because we had one goal, which was, I don't want no gummy worms. And by sticking together, somehow we have less brain cells, but we're doing great. And it's kind of pointed out that they're sort of sticking together at first because it's better in numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But as they realize that, you know, if we leave the group, we're going to probably have tentacles in the morning, they sort of stick together, and then, I can't say force a bond, but it is a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome in some instances.
Yeah, don't worry,
No.
you got Lazelle threatening to kill you if something goes wrong. She's
Right,
Every
right.
night!
Yeah.
And you know, the funny thing is, she's like, oh, I'll do it. And you're like, no, I've got you. And she's like, you would do that for me? I love you. It's like, I don't even know who you are. She was on me before they fixed the romance percentages. She was on me like bait on a hook. I took one pinky toe into that tiefling camp, and she was like, hey, we should hang out. I'm like, hey, I just started.
I just met you.
It's like, I know things probably go a little faster in the astral plane, but maybe not.
Like, ma'am, this is Act 1.
This is more of like a second base Act 2 sort of deal, sort of thing. Actually, speaking on Act 2, we had a lot of cut content in Act 2 as well.
Yeah.
We were supposed to get Ketherick Thorm as a companion.
What?
Oh,
You didn't know?
No, I did not know that.
So we were supposed to get a whole lot of cut content between that. Ketherick Thorm was originally conceptualized to be one of our player NPCs, like one of our buddies, which is why his story is so compelling. And a lot of people were asking about it. They're like, hey, why can't we redeem the boy? They even still have lines just before the big fight that you can skip the whole first half of the fight with a good charisma roll. They kept that in there as kind of like a reward. But even on like the top of the rooftops there, the tower top, I guess, it is almost set up in a way you can kind of see it. You can kind of see where the switch happened, where they were working on something and they said, nope, we gotta flip this. And the specific moment, spoilers, of course, the specific moment is just after you defeat everything. The man gets down, drops on his knees, and he's like, oh no, everything's bad. And you're like, you can still change this. I read up on your wife. You're a good person. And he's like, no, I'm a terrible person. And I'm like, you just need a chance. And if you extend that hand, he almost takes it. And then Dame Aelin shows up.
Right.
And it's just a complete 180. He goes right back to, no, I'm gonna call up the Netherbrain. And
that makes sense, because he's like so fleshed out. Like his like that experience, I was expecting that for all three. You know, that kind of extended sort of like, you know, a phase 1, phase 2, or figuring out
the emotional
like,
damage.
Yeah.
I'm your therapy. Hello.
It's okay. Baldur's Gate's everyone's therapy, including the people in it.
Basically, yeah.
But yeah, he was supposed to have that kind of a character arc where he flips it around, and I think they turned it into Minthara. I think that's kind of where it transitioned into Minthara as a character. But that was a lot later on down the road. She was originally locked behind an evil campaign only, and they flipped it around so you didn't have to turn her into a sheep. It was supposed to be her or Halcyon, and honestly, I picked the bear, so
Same.
we all did.
Yes.
Always the
But
bear.
they also added in a little note, since they, you know, converted and transitioned things over, they did put a soft lock on it that you can't take both of them. You have to choose one of them at the end of the Shadowlands. And I think that was less of a player constraint sort of deal and more of a narrative. because putting them
Yeah.
both together would have been really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we already have Lae'zel and Shadowheart at each other's throats. We don't need those two at each other's throats.
Well, I was like determined to get both Will and Karlach. Like once I knew more about like what was going on between those two, because you can't start a game with both of them in your party. It's later on that you're kind of like, all right, we have these, because you're cutting out all of that that interaction and like coming to like, what do we do about this now that I've picked up Will and Karlach as well, or Karlach started in the party, we run into Will and it's like, whoa, I don't know your drama, but we need to like figure this out, you know?
And depending on when you find either or, it can get really spicy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because if you show up to Will and you've got Karlach, he's like, the children are
ready.
behind me.
Right.
And if you show up to Will and then you find Karlach, he's like, all right, it's time to go. And she's like, wait,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
She's like, I
No.
just got here.
When I played in early access, well, because they, at that, I don't remember when I actually started in early access, but every time I killed Karlach. And it wasn't until, I know. But
No, I get it.
you run
That was a
into
good one.
those fake paladins or whoever, and they're like, oh, we got the, like, it was I was convinced. I was like, this is what I need to do. And then, in the actual game, like knowing that, because my partner also played with me, and I had played a lot of early access, and it was very difficult for me to not like take the driver's seat and be like, this is the path we're going, and kind of listen. And immediately he was like, oh, I want to play as Karlach, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then when I didn't have her in my party, then I, didn't kill her. But it's, I like that sort of like, you have to make a choice. And then depending on what choice you make initially, then that also, like, thinking through the different combinations of what people would do in having characters that are opposed to each other. And for Lae'zel, I already knew. I was like, I'm gonna romance Lae'zel, so Shadowheart, I don't care about you. Like, get out.
Oh
I
no.
was very quick. Like, my first impressions, I was like, this is it. And then the more that I played, I was like, oh, wait, maybe I should play as Astarion and just see, like, what is
How
your
far can
deal?
you
Because
take
I
it?
don't really know. I didn't really have it. We had in our first playthrough a party of Shadowheart, Karlach, the Dark Urge, which was my actual first character.
Yeah.
And who was the other one? Oh, Lae'zel. Did I say Lae'zel? Shadowheart, Lae'zel, Dark Urge.
Sorry.
I don't know who the. Oh no, Dark Urge, Shadowheart, Lae'zel. Who was our fourth one? I don't know.
You? Oh,
It was
no,
somewhat
you
forgettable.
were
I'm probably thinking Gale.
Dark Urge, Lae'zel.
rude.
Dark Urge, Lae'zel, Karlach, and Shadowheart.
There
okay.
you go.
all right.
Okay, there we
They're all
go.
girls. All girl party.
All girl
Girl
party. Yeah.
squad.
Yeah, I was playing as my half-elf druid that I have played D&D as, and I was obsessed with just turning into an owlbear. That's all I wanted to do, is like turn into an owlbear
It's a good
and
call.
jump on things. Like that's
It's
so,
a
it's my
very good technique. I ran an entire group of druids. Like I played
Oh,
multiplayer, and our main gig was just constantly trampling and rumbling and constantly just jumping on everything. We didn't even
Yeah.
attack properly. We just kept hopping around until they died.
It's so
I'm like,
fun.
you can't kill me. I'm an owlbear. What are you gonna do? Poke me? I think Halson got more time as an owlbear than he did as a proper cave bear.
No.
Oh,
Did you ever play as a druid there, Amicus?
No, I had enough druid action from other characters, so.
Oh.
I'm
sure you did.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Oh no.
multiplayer was definitely a fun time. I would like to see it, if possible, expanded though. Like perhaps having like our own customizable space outside that's for multiplayer, like an online tavern. You could do like little tavern games or whatnot. What I would like, and maybe this is harkening back to the Shadow Realms games that was canceled or whatever. Basically, the premise was that you create a dungeon out of a tile set, You can put in like monsters and traps and puzzles and treasures and whatnot. And then your players would kind of go through that. So
That's a good idea.
I sort of
Now
bring the
that's-
D&D into the Baldur's Gate game.
That actually would work
Mhm.
though, with your
Mhm.
earlier idea too, with the modules.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
you had like that interdimensional thing, I mean, Withers has his own like pocket space for when your buddies are just not available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when there's no thoughts head empty kind of going on with your other NPC, he just kind of plucks them and puts them in a space pocket in the corner.
hmm
There's no say that he can't just pick you up while you're sentient and throw you in the same hole. I mean, he does it
Fair.
during the epilogue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could actually see a multiplayer version of that happening. So rather than the NPCs, it would be just all of your buddies kind of wandering around.
Mhm.
Although
Right.
technically that would make it like an online, just plain old D&D thing in a weird way,
True.
with more looting and traps.
Yeah.
It could be meta about it, and there'd be like a room in a tavern where there's like a D&D table set up.
Yeah.
Just walk up
A
and click on
D&D
it.
and a D&D!
Yeah.
Right.
D&D all the way down.
We all float down here. If we have water walking.
Mm.
I had a thought and I lost it. Oh, it's gone. It was important too. So here's a good question. What did you guys all play? Like, what was the class that was most challenging for you, and what was the class that you absolutely loved, 10 out of 10, played that right off the get-go, or maybe just you really liked that one?
I've always played either a sorcerer or a wizard, so
I bet you have.
yeah.
Ain't nothing with a squishy wizard.
Hey,
Nothing wrong
look,
with
if
it.
they had artificer, I'd play that too. But no.
I mean, I love druids.
Mm.
Like I feel like that's where, because I started to learn D&D as a druid, which was very challenging for me, that's where I actually was like, oh man, I can figure this out. And so since then, I've always kind of gravitated toward druid player or characters. I don't know about most challenging, but like I had to get used to playing as a warlock. I think because I was trying to figure out going from a druid where it's like, oh, I got these options and I can do whatever, to being like, okay, this is what I do now, and I have to wait a little bit before I can do more cool things, or like more Eldritch Blast
You
or
get two.
whatever. I think it took me a second to be like, okay, I understand what's happening here. I'm hexing people. I'm like doing whatever. Because I also played as Lae'zel as a fighter. Like I really enjoyed being a fighter for a different reason, but similar to Druid, where it's like, oh, I can see like in my turn, I can like have these other things that I'm doing, or I can feel very powerful and strong, and I don't know, just wail on people. So yeah, I would say Druid's my favorite.
Good call.
I did like playing Karlach in the group. So,
Mm.
although I haven't really touched Bard yet, so I'm gonna have to. That might be my
Bard's
next
good.
one.
I am a little biased. I really like Barbarian.
Mhm.
I
kidding.
like big swing.
Yeah.
I like swinging things. It's a very, very meathead class sometimes. I wore that warped band of intellect the entire playthrough because I thought I would be smart that way. Wasted so many good helmets for that stinking hat. But I was actually surprised to find that I liked Monk.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
I bought a hireling and she was a default monk, and I did a little bit of tweaking, and she hits like a lot. She's really strong. I mean, granted, she kind of snaps over like a twig if something hits her, but she's really tough. And it was kind of nice to see that there was another class other than fighter that could just aggressively continue to hit something over and over again.
Yeah.
Granted, didn't like it in Act 3 when that got tossed back in my face, with other people who were also monks.
Right.
But I did like it. And contrary to how like I'd normally play D&D on the tabletops, I really did not like Paladin class.
Really?
I struggled with it a lot. It was, again, I'm more of like the upfront and personal kind of style. So Paladin was really rough for me because every time I tried to play, it turned into a support class.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really struggling to kind of like stay back and not get hit, or to stay in front, take the hit, and still support everybody without actually hitting anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I just
It's
remember
3 feet in front of me.
I just remembered that I played Paladin when we were doing our multiplayer thing.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, it was the Dragon Ball.
I thought you were a cleric.
No, I was a Paladin.
Oh, that's why you couldn't do Scorching Ray. I was wondering why you weren't doing that. I'm like, got these spells, right?
Yo, what are you doing?
Like, why are you casting Fireball? You're not a wizard.
I'm doing the best I can.
Oh man, I don't know if this is like, if you either of you had this experience, but I at times tried playing as Shadowheart and would get so annoyed with her with missing Firebolt like every single time, and I'm like, what is your point? Why do I have you here? Like
90% accuracy chance. Miss.
Right.
Just come on.
Like, I don't know what's up with that.
I just gave her the hula hoop of doom, and I was like, yeah, you're not throwing anything at the enemy. You're just hula hooping everybody. We're all going to have a great time. So do me a favor, walk in that gigantic circle, and then come back to me, and we'll see how it goes. I will admit I used a lot of mods for a time, but when we first got to the last Light Inn, I was with the first 4. People told me, it's gonna be really hard to save everybody. I was like, I take that as a challenge, and I immediately split everybody up like I wasn't supposed to. So, I figured if I put them in the hot spots, then maybe like I could save more people, and that didn't work as well as I thought it would. But the one thing that I did right was, as soon as that combat started, I already had Shadowheart in hula hoop mode, and she was just on top of the target. Like, nice. She's like, you want to get to her? You got to get to me. And that's a hula hoop for you. So, I mean, the owlbear on the roof, I thought was a good idea. It was not. But, I mean, the hula hoop has definitely saved a lot of lives.
Yeah. I could see that.
Have you guys used mods yet? Or at all?
I have not.
No. Well, I do encourage it after you, of course, have gone through like the normal playthroughs, but there is nothing more terrifying than walking up to Moonrise Towers with every single companion you own, every single hireling you own.
I mean, I think that would be fun.
I think I got a total of 17 people walking up to Moonrise Towers. Oh. Because I had Halcyon dropping a wood nymph. The wood nymph dropped a wood woad. And then Gale was like, here, have a cat. And Astarion was like, here, have a cat. So, and they were all owlbears.
Oh, no.
So my partner would get so annoyed because I love doing that as a druid. I was like, okay, I'm going to get my people. And then I would have Lae'zel like take a scroll and be like, oh, here's something else that's spot. Like I would have this little tiny armies of people and he'd be like, your turns are taking forever. Like, can we just speed this up? And I'm like, no, we need all these littles.
But you know, I think that's a good way.
Like...
I think that's a good way of kind of explaining why they kept it to a certain party size.
Yeah.
And probably why they kept it to a certain level tap-off, because they have actually unlocked the higher levels in mods, and they've been like, you can cast this, you can cast that. I'm not going to touch those, because I know they're just terrifying. And yes, Amicus, they do have an Artificer class. He does cast gun.
Ooh.
For funsies.
There you go.
They do have an Artificer class. I don't know how up to date it is, but they did have one at one point. They also had a Kobold. I don't know if they had Kenku, but mods can either make or break a game. I think that these definitely made it. They definitely, or rather, didn't make it. It already was made. I think we can all agree that Baldur's Gate has very well made itself a staple of both creativity and did you foresee this happening?
Right.
But the mods that have come out for it, in my personal opinion, I think they somehow bring it even higher up on that bar. And I know we're getting one last update. It's kind of like their final love letter. Honestly, I thought the epilogues were the final love letter.
Same.
But I'm very curious to see what they do with their own modding tools, because they are making them. They're saying, "Be free, my children."
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to be their own way of saying, "Go ahead, make a DLC."
Oh Lord.
So we might actually see some sort of an Avernus DLC. It might not be the one we're expecting, but hey, maybe we'll have Bing Bong in it.
Who knows?
Who can make my daycare?
Oh no!
I'll just set
Baldur's
up
Gate,
shop
Lower
in Baldur's
City.
Gate. Yeah. Yeah. We're just playing. Just like a little magical schoolhouse. I don't know.
The quest is to find the correct toy box. Oh no! That's where all the toys were going. Oh no!
Yeah.
Right.
It's coming full circle.
Yep, we got it.
Right, well, I think that's time. Thank you two for being here. It's been an absolute joy. I love talking about Baldur's Gate, anything. So, by all means, catch me randomly throughout the day, any day. I'll be there. But I hope you all enjoyed your time.
It's been a pleasure.
So
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And to the rest of you out there, be sure to stick around for our next episode where former story lead of Hogwarts Legacy, Adrian Robb, will be paying us a visit. And until then, be safe, be well, be kind. Bye-bye.